All right, hello everybody, and welcome to Geopolitical Trends, where truth matters. Excited to be with you on this December 5th. Yeah, it's too early, right? At 0800 hours, but it's also the only time my guest in Beijing has this time available. So we're grateful to have her here. So we're gonna do part two of my conversation with Anna Malindog. You all watched the previous video we did, part one, and now we're gonna do part two, addressing some really key issues that's going on domestically inside Philippines, and there is no one better than Anna to answer this. So I'm going to bring her into the studio right away, and we're going to. Hi, Anna. Good evening to you.
Good evening from here where I am right now. Actually, I'm in Beijing at the moment, and good morning in your side. I think it's early morning. It's around 8 a.m. in there.
That is correct. So, well, we are so excited. I'm so excited to have you here. The community is excited to have you here, and we're gonna get into. Let me just to those who do not know who Anna is. I put, by the way, a full bio in the description, but I'm gonna just share a few things with you here, guys. Anna Malindog-Uy is a PhD candidate at the Institute of South Cooperation and Development at Peking University in Beijing, China. So she's working on completing her dissertation. She's in a writing process right now of completing that, and soon she will hold the official title of Dr. Anna Malindog. She's also a columnist, a writer for the Manila Time, and she is also the Deputy Secretary General for the Association for Philippines-China Understanding. Very interesting background. Just, guys, go to the description and you'll see the full bio there. So let's get into this, Anna, because we don't want to waste a lot of time, because I got a lot of questions for you that the audience wanted to have an answer to. So the first thing I would like to ask you is, what this eruption, the domestic political chaos in Philippines that just happened, what was this is all about? Was Sara Duterte threatened first before she responded? What's going on?
Um, that's a very interesting question, David. If you really look at what is going on in the country, there's a political tension, and basically the main actors at the moment is, of course, the Marcos side, which is being represented, of course, by the president of the Philippines, Marcos BBM, or Bongbong Marcos Jr. or Ferdinand Marcos Jr. And on the other hand, you have the vice president, which is Sara Duterte. If you really look at the situation, these two run in the same ticket in May 2022 national election. So they have this so-called unity. So they were in one ticket, and because of this, they have combined forces of the supporters of the Duterte and, of course, the supporters of the Marcoses. So both of them won landslide victory in the last May 2022 election. During the first 1.5 years, I think that kind of uni team was there, but I think there was cracks already after around a year, precisely because you have also a figure in our current politics that, the Speaker of the House, Martin Romualdez, is the cousin, the cousin of the president. So as you can see, if you really look at the country's domestic politics in terms of who is the front runner in terms of presidential race, even in the 2022 election, it's really the Duterte, no? It's Sara Duterte. However, Sara decided not to run for presidency, so it was BBM, and she ran for the vice presidency. So they both won. However, this time around, it seems that these two are not anymore friends, and the so-called unity team is not anymore there. So now there is this political tension that is now creating some kind of commotion in the Philippines, because the supporters, of course, and also the supporters of Sara Duterte is trying to protect her, and also to clamor that all of these political harassments being thrown at her should stop. And there are a lot of political harassment being thrown at the current of the vice president. One of that would be inquiry, the congressional inquiry as to how she used the confidential fund that was given to her actually by the office of the president. And now there's a lot of accusations that, there's such a thing as corruption, or to a certain extent
Mm-hmm.
to that effect, that's being thrown at the vice president, and many others. And also, I think the father of Sara, the former president, there was also this threat of what you call ICC, the ICC thing, that anytime soon the ICC will issue
Mm-hmm.
a warrant of arrest, and then he will be, um, trialed in The Hague. So
Mm-hmm.
it's really a confluence of factors. But so now there's tension, because before Sara was very, I mean, the vice president was very quiet, but now the vice
Yeah.
president becomes vocal, and I think she's in a fighting mode. And of course, the current administration as well will be, and the and BBM side will fight it off with her. So that tension is very much felt at the moment, not only in terms of
Mm-hmm.
exchange of words, but even in terms of action. Because as you can see, there's already an impeachment case being filed against the president, against the vice president. There are two impeachment cases being filed against her in Congress. And as I
Yeah.
can see, because they control the Congress, the current BBM and his cousin controls the Congress. Almost all of the congressmen, they have it on their side. That impeachment, I think, if you talk about numbers, will pass. However, majority of the Filipino people don't want that, and they don't want the vice president to be impeached. So how are you going to
Yeah.
manifest that? It's being manifested by going to the streets and having protest rally. So it's not anymore just the supporters of the VP that is
Mm-hmm.
doing the protest rally. As I
Mm-hmm.
have as I have known this morning, that the biggest religious group in my country, they call themselves Iglesia ni Cristo, would also be holding the huge protest rally in Manila against the impeachment. So you can see this kind of, political turmoil going on in the country. But the question really, David, is why is it that the vice president is being ostracized, politically
Yeah.
speaking, in many ways by the current administration? I mean, the whole administration is something that the whole force of the current administration is against her, is pushing her to the wall. There's only one thing that I can see. They want to eliminate the vice president Sara Duterte in the political landscape of the Philippines, especially in preparation to
Mm.
the 28th election, national election, because they know that if she ran for the presidency, she will win.
She will
That
win.
she
Wow.
will win. That's really the case. So for her not to be able to run, and at the same time for her not to win, they have to
Yeah.
destroy her, politically speaking, and of course taint her image as a person, and
Yeah.
as a politician. So that's going on. On the other hand, it has also something to do with, I think it's also some kind of an attack. Um, the political tension in the Philippines is not just about Sara Duterte as against to Marcos Jr., or the faction of Marcos
Mm-hmm.
Jr. and faction of Sara. It has also something to do with the current situation of the country. Really, there are also Filipino like myself who are not anymore happy of what's going on in the country.
Mm-hmm.
There is massive corruption going on. It's really obvious. And the other one, I think, is um, there is the peace and order is not as good. There's a rising crime in the country. Even drug problem is also
Mm-hmm.
rising, and also the economy is not good as well. And
Wow.
also the foreign policy, if you really look at it, the foreign policy of my country is not independent and heavily influenced by the United States. That's why you have an issue in the South China Sea at the moment, because the approach in the South China Sea is
Mm-hmm.
more the strategy of the United States rather than Filipinos, the way we deal with conflict. So if you put all of this together, and including the political
Mm-hmm.
rivalry and tension between the Dutertes and the Marcoses slash Romualdez, put them together, the country really is like a hot potato or it's like a ticking bomb. Anytime it explodes. So that is really the situation of the country right
Yeah.
now. If you ask me, how would I assess my country? To be very frank with you, I see my country as a bleeding country. It bleeds because of so
Mm.
many domestic problems. The prices of rice is too high, prices of oil, electricity, transportation is really too high that ordinary Filipinos cannot afford it anymore. Even middle class is having this difficulty. There's a massive corruption, as I have
Yeah.
said earlier. And on the other hand, you have a very problematic foreign policy that put us in a very compromising situation vis-a-vis China, and now Russia is reacting precisely because of the Typhoon missile system deployed in the northern part of the Philippines, which makes Russia and China very uncomfortable. The ASEAN countries are very uncomfortable about this,
Mm-hmm.
and it adds to the kind of bleak situation that we have in the Philippines. So putting them together, economic, domestic problems, politics, plus the very unbalanced and very heavily influenced foreign policy, especially the approach to
Mm-hmm.
the South China dispute as against to China, is the country really is not in a good position. And the
Mm-hmm.
country really, in terms of projection, in terms of how you view it, it's not really in a good
Yeah.
position. It's very bleak, if you will ask me.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
that's why there are a lot of Filipinos really who are getting tired of this. They want a change, that they want a change really for good. And also they want, many of them, or some of them, would I say, or many Filipinos, I would
Mm-hmm.
say, that they're clamoring for the current president to resign. But of course the president
Wow.
will not resign, of course. There were
Mm-hmm.
protest rally that, and you can hear them shouting that they're shouting Duterte, Duterte, but on the other hand, they're also shouting BBM resign. So this is really the situation
Yeah.
of Philippines at the moment. So not so happy, not so bright, but as a person, I don't see that it's hopeless though.
Well, well, very interesting. We're gonna get back to the South China Sea because there's something that I need to address, not address rather, but just share with the community, and of course, get your perspective onto this. Now, if we are to go back to this notion, what you mentioned about the Filipino people, sort of, not the Filipino people, rather the current government. When I say current government, I'm referring to the Marcos camp. So the fear, if I am to read this correctly, based on what you stated, is that they are so concerned about the possibility of her winning the election, the upcoming elections.
Mhm.
Now, could it be, and this is a question for you, Anna, could it be that there are some foreign elements pushing for this domestic chaos inside Philippines?
I would agree. I would presume, yes, there's like some kind of foreign influence, or in not, I would not say direct intervention, but foreign influence pushing for
Mm-hmm.
this, some kind of political domestic chaos going on. Precisely because,
Mm-hmm.
I'll be very frank and honest, the United States don't want to see another Duterte in power. Why? Because they cannot control the Philippines if a Duterte is in power. Really, because the way I
Wow.
see like, it would be the same as the former president. The former president's stand during his time is, we will be friend to the United States, we will be a friend of China, Russia, and everyone, but no one will dictate us in how we gonna you know move forward, and how we gonna approach our foreign policy, especially in that South China Sea issue. And he doesn't like to have military troops on the ground. He doesn't like, even until now, he doesn't like the Philippines to have hosting military bases of the United States. This is really
Mm-hmm.
clear.
Mm-hmm.
And even during his time, he actually asked for the review of the MDT. He said that the MDT, the Mutual Defense Treaty, needs to be reviewed and needs to be checked if it's beneficial to the Philippines. And he attempted
Yeah.
to how do you call that, to revoke the visiting forces agreement. And he
Yeah.
sent a letter to the United States that we don't want the visiting forces agreement anymore. So if you really look at the Duterte per se, in terms of their brand of leadership, you can
Yeah.
see that they want an independent Philippines, and they want an independent foreign policy. Now, if you are on the shoes of the United States, you will not, you don't like this. because you will not a hold on the Philippines anymore. You will not have that strong influence because if in any case, let us say hypothetically speaking, Marcos will take over the Philippines. I really don't think so. I think
Yeah.
he will. I think the way I see it, he will prioritize the national interest. The way I see it, Sarah, the vice president right now, or Sara, will prioritize the national interest of the country and would not in any way compromise the sovereignty, independence, and autonomy of the Philippines. Unlike what is going on right now under a Marcos Jr. presidency, our sovereignty, our independence, and our autonomy is very much compromised. There's a heavy influence and there's a heavy presence of Americans in my country, not only in terms of influence, in terms of policy, even in boots on the ground. You can see a lot of that
Oh,
going around the
yeah.
Philippines. That is really the fact of the matter, David. And
Yeah.
I'm just telling the truth. I'm not making this up. And many Filipino could attest to that.
Yeah. Well, I do know that the Marcos family, and again, I have nothing against Marcos. I am not a because I'm an outsider. So, but I looking from outside in. I do know about the influence the U.S. has inside the Philippines, especially with the Marcos family, when it comes to, for example, the massive amount of gold and so forth. And I have trusted sources that do know the history of the gold, how it was moved around specifically during that specific era. So, without going into this detail, I am also was lucky to be aware of a private conversation of the former President Duterte himself when when the U.S. Washington was trying to push him behind the scenes into conflict with China, and his word was, and I put it in quote here. He said, "Are you crazy? You want me to fight the Chinese?" End of quote. That was so to me. It was like yes, some of his policies were looked at differently here in the U.S., especially dealing with drugs. But on the other hand, if that's what the Filipino people wants to clean their streets, Duterte was able to do so.
Yes.
That's to me. I'm not defending the guy. I am not, but I am speaking for with facts here. During his reign, the drug issues in Philippines, and I am very aware of this, same like what we have here in the US, except we don't deal with it here. Philippines, during his reign, the drug crimes went down. Now I hear other stories. Marcos doesn't care about that. So the drug issues in Philippines, it's going up now. So,
Yes.
and this, yeah, and this is what I'm saying. Could it be that behind the scenes there are foreign elements pushing for this because they will benefit from the division that exists within Philippines, and they end up the
Yes.
Filipino, yeah, they end up the Filipino people end up paying the price, like you mentioned earlier. So let's me just follow up on this, and I'll move on to something else. If these tensions, domestic tensions persist, how that, in your opinion, is going to impact the economy of the Philippines as we
Oh
speak?
well, if the tension would continue, and let us say, no, if the people really
Hmm.
get so tired and get angry with what's going on in the Philippines, especially now that you have the impeachment there's a case of impeachment filed against the vice
Yeah,
president. There's two, and then a lot of problems in the country, as I've said earlier. I think if people gets angry, and many people, I'm not kidding, David, so many Filipinos are already tired and angry, and
yeah,
and if there's like people power, let us say, because that's really part of our history, that when we want to change something
yeah.
drastically and abruptly, that one thing to that is what you call people power. And I've seen protest rally in EDSA Shrine for what, 5 days, and it was covered in social media. So, and even some media outlets covered it in terms of of how it is, and what was the issues
Hmm.
being raised in this protest rally. Well, the problem with this, when you talk about economy, is um of course there's a political tension. So, investors in my country will be discouraged to invest because the politics is not stable. If politics is not stable, it means the economy is affected in many ways. So one of that I think that I can see is, withdrawal of investor withdrawal of investment in my country, and
Yeah.
discouraged investors to get into my country, to invest, the serious ones to invest in the country, because if there are commotions, then business is affected. The business is affected in many ways. So that's, I think, one thing. So if that happens, if you don't have much FDI or foreign direct investment, so you don't generate
Yeah.
new economic activities, you don't generate new capital, then your economy is crippled in many ways. And take note, David, we already have problems with China politically and diplomatically speaking.
Yeah.
And even if
Yeah.
you talk about Chinese investment, which is biggest in my country, and China is our largest trading partner, right now it's already affected. There's not much Chinese investment, big ones coming into the country, infrastructure, in terms of infrastructure, digital infrastructure, and many others. Even our export to China, we're not anymore number one, I think, in terms of our banana export, in terms of our durian export, and even in terms of mango export, because now China is diversifying and getting all of this
All the-
export of our sources from other countries already. So it really affects our country economically. And also, who will invest in a country, really, David, that is full of domestic problems, and there's a political
Yeah.
volatility and instability to a certain extent, and also you have a foreign policy that is very leaning to the United States, that anytime soon the country will be engaged in a military conflict with China, really, because of that South
This
China
is
Sea issue. Every now and then
yeah.
there is some kind of collision. Today, I think today or yesterday, there was another collision between the Chinese vessels and our vessels in some parts of the South China Sea. And of course, China did its own actions trying to protect its interests. So there was a water cannoning against our vessels.
Yeah.
So it happened today. So you see, and I just really hope that it will not escalate into something bigger, or a military confrontation between the two countries, because the Americans are also there in that area. So if you really look at all of this and put it together, no serious foreign direct investor, no serious investor would invest in my country
Yeah.
at this time, because that would be risky for them,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah, well, usually if there is instability and lack of security, that's going to be a very, very concern. This leads me to ask a question, and I'm going to ask it straightforward, Anna, because I trust also your opinion on this matter. Will it be fair to say, will I be wrong to say, is Philippines headed towards a civil war? Because if I look at the history of Philippines prior, when tensions erupt domestically, there is always some outcome like this. Are we seeing a repeat of history here?
Okay, that's a very good question, no? But before I answer that question, David, I just want also to for you to understand, and our audience to understand, that,
Sure.
in the Philippines also, when you talk about attracting foreign direct investors,
Hmm.
or any investor for the matter, even domestic investors, it's also difficult. It's discouraging. Why? Because in ASEAN, we have the highest rate when you talk about electricity. We have the highest rate when you talk about water and transportation, even telecommunication. These are basic in a business. These are basic when you're trying to implement industries. These are overhead costs. The overhead cost is really high if you're a businessman. And on the other hand, also, when you talk about food, it's too expensive in the Philippines. Rice is very expensive in my country. Everything is imported. We don't produce our own food for food security, and that's even one. And another
Wow.
issue also, David, is corruption. Latent corruption in my country everywhere you go under this administration. So if you are a businessman and you want to invest in my country, and you're a serious businessman with a big industry, do you really want to go to my country given all of these things? No, if you put it in a business context. So that is also another reason. These are reasons as well why plus the political tension going
Yeah.
on, yeah, in addition to
Yeah.
all of the problems, will discourage any investors to come into my country, or even investors who are already in my country will go out of my country because of all of these things. That is really the case of the matter. So just to add earlier, another
Yeah.
on the other hand, with your question, if there
Hmm.
would be a civil war in my country, I don't think so. That I am not sure,
Good.
no. But from my perspective, I don't know other political analysts how they gonna address your question. But for me, as far as I'm concerned, I don't think so.
Hmm.
I really hope not too. Because it's really not good for my country. I mean, as much as possible, we can express our disagreement with the current government. Probably Filipinos can do that, but I
Hmm.
really hope that it will be done in a peaceful manner. That it will not be bloody or anything for that
Yeah.
matter. I really hope so, because I don't agree with violence. As far as I'm concerned, I'm also an activist, but as much as possible, I want it to be non-violent activism and peaceful activism. And because I don't like to have casualties in terms of lives as much as
Yeah.
possible if I'm being asked. And I really hope we will not come to a point that we will have that civil war. Probably a protest rally is okay, but going beyond it, that it's already bloody, I don't see it personally as good, really. And but
Yeah.
to be very frank as well, I really don't know what will happen given all of these things that is going on in my country. I really don't know. I cannot tell. But what I'm saying is just my hope, and I what I wish, that even if we have this
Yeah.
protest, even if we express our dissent against the current administration of Marcos Jr., we will not come to a point that Filipino to Filipino will fight in a bloody
Yeah.
way. No, I hope not, really, because it's not good. It's not really
Yeah.
good for
Yeah. I
for
hope it
my
never
country.
get. Yeah, I hope it never gets to that. But at the same time, I don't shy away from sort of highlighting what the possible. I always like, as we say, look over the horizon to see what lies
Mm,
ahead. Because if I am to put myself in the shoe of in the shoes of an average Filipino individual and start to see, well, my economic situation is getting worse with the corruption that is now rampant in the country and a leadership that is failing to provide the basics and necessities, you only left with another option. And that option is you're gonna voice your concern, and once you voice your concern, you're gonna descend to the streets, and we all know what comes after. That was the reason why I've been thinking about, are we headed to a civil war in Philippines? And I, like you said, Anna, I hope it never gets to that, because Filipino people deserve better. But on the other
yeah.
hand, how will they call for the resignation of Marcos Jr.? Is there any
I think that
possibility for that?
I think that kind of call is already happening. There are many
Okay.
Filipinos already calling for the resignation of the current president of the Philippines.
Okay.
In the Yes, there are already calls for that, and the reasons for that is, of course, they're saying that his government is, well, allegedly and
I lost
so
the sound. Here we go.
yeah, I'm here. So
Yeah.
there's really a call already.
Yeah.
However, that call is not necessarily shared by everyone.
Okay.
There's a big chunk of the population calling for BBM resignation, but on the other hand, you don't discount the fact that there are also supporters. There are also a lot of Marcos supporters. So the country really at the moment is divided. But if you ask me if BBM will resign, I don't think so. Really, I don't think so. But if you ask
Mhm.
me if there are bases for why some Filipinos, or many Filipinos, are calling for his resignation, to be
Yeah.
very frank as well, there are bases to it. And they're saying that the leadership of BBM is not as competent as it is expected, and on the other hand, in terms of addressing basic issues, and especially issues of corruption, issues of even climate change, how you become resilient as a country, because right now there's a lot of natural disaster happening in my country, and it seems that the president doesn't know what to do with it, how to respond to
Mm.
it. So these are basic problems that we expected the president to be able to address efficiently and effectively, but it seems he's failing on this sense. So
Yeah.
there are reasons why some Filipinos are calling for his resignation, but this is a very hard dynamics because you have two factions and there are,
Yeah.
you know, two sets of supporters. And
Yeah.
I have heard
Yeah.
that in this coming Saturday, December 7th, the Marcos supporters will be staging a rally as well in one part of the Philippines, and they will be
Wow.
cry. Their battle cry is they love BBM, and they want the vice president to be impeached. However, there is also an upcoming rally of Iglesia Ni Cristo calling the Congress not to proceed with impeachment. So you see, it's
Yeah.
really hard dynamics at
To
the
yeah.
moment. Yeah.
Well, usually a good leader will listen to the voices of his or her people. So if the
Yeah. Mm.
will of the people wants him to resign, then to me, that's what a good leader does. Well, a good leader will never get to that point to begin with. A good leader will not get involved in corruption and so forth. This is almost like what's going on right now in South Korea.
Mm.
There is now a call for resignation of the South Korean president.
Mm.
Which to me was like, if that's what the people wants, then the parliament is moving forward with that. So maybe Philippines might end up in the same direction, or pursuing the same path as far as the majority of people. Give it to the people. Let people decide who they
Mm.
want their president to be. So yeah, they voted for him back then. Turns out to be he wasn't as of a good leader, in my opinion. And again, I am an outsider. I'm looking from outside in. I don't see any improvements for the Philippines since he took over.
No, no, no.
I just, I
That's
could be
that.
wrong. I could be wrong, but
Mm.
I keep up with what's going on in the Philippines. So
But I could confirm
let
that as a Filipino.
yeah.
I mean, really, I really don't see any concrete achievement of the current administration, really. I
Hmm.
don't even know what happens to our infrastructure development. We need infrastructure development in the country, but there's no big ticket program. All of this infrastructure is going on is from the
Wow.
previous administration. Our economy is, I mean, we're even selling our gold reserve, for God's sake. Did you know
I,
that we sold
I was aware of,
some,
yes.
yeah, some parts of our gold reserve? Why would
So
you do that if the economy
so
is
where
doing
is the
good?
where is the money, Anna? Where the money is spent
That
on?
means that is even the case, that because there was no transparency in this regard. There was
Oh,
none. There's no explanation whatsoever if why what's the reason why, and where did what the money intends for. Where would it go? So nothing, no nada. That's
oh,
even the
oh.
case. So I
That's
mean, when it
problem.
comes to leadership, if you really
Yeah.
love your country, I mean, for me, the way I see it, if BBM love really has a care for his country, the Philippines, if you think that you're not capable in proceeding because probably you have your own issues, or probably you really don't know how to address all the problems of the country,
Yeah.
I think you have that kind of self initiative to
Yeah.
relinquish power when you think you're not anymore fit of leading a country. But not everyone has that kind of wisdom, I think, and I'm
Mhm.
not sure about Marcos Jr. if he will come to a point and he will come to realize and probably have that self introspection that if
Yeah.
I if and ask the question, am I doing good for my country? I am an effective leader or not? Something to that effect. But I am not
Yeah.
sure about it. It's his own call. It's his own. He has to deal with it. But for me, I don't see. I really don't see the in the near future. Or even I don't see it
Yeah.
that he will resign. I don't see it. Really.
Okay. Well, and on that, just to follow up on this, Anna, if you are a queen for the day and you've been given the reign to advise the government, doesn't matter who,
Mm.
what would you advise them with? How would you advise the government, given the current conditions, if you are in that position? Literally, if you have the ears of both the president and the vice president and the government writ large, how would you advise them?
For me, if I would have the ear of the president, there's only two things, no? Because everything that's going on in the country is really an issue of leadership. It's really an issue of leadership. It's an issue of
Yeah.
policy. It's an issue of credibility. It's an issue of competence. Now, if I would be advising the president, if only I can, I will really ask him, Are you really fit, and are you really capable, and would you really be willing to go through a lot of hardship to address all problems in the country? Now, if you think that you cannot do this, then probably
Step down.
you should go down
Yeah.
and let someone else handle it. Then maybe you can also contribute to whoever would be the next in line, because this is not
Yeah.
an issue of, if you really think for your country, it's not really an issue of you not being in that highest position, but it's an issue of
Yeah.
where are you effective. If you're not effective being a leader, probably you're effective in other means, in other ways. So that's maybe my advice to him. But if he would say, like, I know I'm capable of doing this, and I'm capable of continuing and proceeding,
Hmm.
probably I would tell him, then do it and make a way. Do the right thing. And what are the right thing? Stop the corruption that's going on in the country. Don't politically
Yeah.
harass the vice president, and focus on you know
Yeah. On the
especially
country.
the American influence, the US influence. Try to forge and try to strike of an
Mm.
independent foreign policy. And
Yeah.
you have to do it not by talking, but by action. And let people see that you're really competent. Because if
Yeah.
not, then there's nothing to it. You will, I think,
Yeah.
if I have the ear of the president, I will tell him exactly, like, you will end up as one of the presidents of the Philippines that is a failure in every sense. And do you want that legacy to be attached to your name? That is a big
Wow.
question that he needs to answer, really, because
Mm.
it's all about legacy, really. I mean, how would people recall you? I mean, in their mind, after 6 years of presidency, how would they view you as a president for that 6 years? Would it be positive? Would it be good? That's really the measure of everything at the end of the day. And also, going down from power is not really, for me, something that is, like, they will say that it's a shameful thing to do. No, it's not.
No.
Because why? You're giving a service to your country. You're giving a favor to your country, to change the course and the direction of the
No.
trajectory from a worst to better, to something good. That's the way I see it. Because if I am in his position, really, like, if I am Marcos Jr., if I can see that I'm not able to do the things that I promised, then probably I would just go down and tell someone else, okay, who among you are competent enough to lead the country? Probably you should go up, I'll go down, and I'll just help
Mm.
you, because that is a
Yeah.
service to your country. You know yourself if you can do it or not. That is very, no, I mean, it's a person would know if you can do something or not, even a small thing, or if you can do it or not. Now, if you can't, then why not? Then someone else, you will free from stress. That's
Yeah.
that's even the case.
That's
That's
true.
just my opinion.
Mm.
That's my
What?
opinion only.
Oh,
Of
well,
course,
that's why Anna, you need to consider. I don't know. Would you consider running for an office, maybe in a parliament, maybe whatever political office? Would you ever entertain that idea moving forward for you?
I'm not sure, but
Okay.
who knows the future? But who
Yeah.
knows the future? Yeah, but
Well,
I'm not.
you promised me one thing, Anna. If you ever do, you grant me an interview.
Yes, yes, definitely. That
Should, should
one,
I
that
should,
one
should
is
I ha-
already.
should I have your word on that?
Yes,
Okay,
definitely,
then
definitely.
that's it.
Yeah.
Perfect, perfect. All right, let's move on. One thing. Actually, you mentioned something about the U.S. interest before and why Marcos Jr., to me personally, is not a strong leader. There is one particular aspect that's going on right now is that the U.S. interest in Philippines, not only from basing the military stuff, it is also from an energy perspective. The U.S. interest in Philippines has to do with oil and gas industry. That's what I found out. So what I did find out is that the U.S. is considering right now, believe it or not, behind closed doors, considering some sort of an investment in Philippines, a multi-billion-dollar oil and gas industry, and this is going to be in the west side of the Philippines. Of course, if we say the West side, you know what I'm referring to. That's why the
Mm-hmm.
challenges regarding the South China Sea. And this is why I am starting to feel comfortable saying this domestic
Mm-hmm.
turmoil is a pretext for what we are thinking about the oil and gas, because the US Energy Information now, the agency estimated that the South China Sea holds about 190 trillion cubic feet of natural gas and
Mm-hmm.
11 billion barrel of oil. So when you take a step back and see why all of a sudden Philippines is descending into this domestic chaos, someone's going to benefit from this. So,
Yes,
and
that's
this
true.
leads me now to ask you the question pertaining to this. And Philippines vis-a-vis, there are some calls about should Philippines join BRICS. In your
Mm.
opinion, Anna, do you think Philippines is qualified and ready to join BRICS?
Um, in terms of if it's ready and in terms of it's qualified, I would say no. I'm sorry. I mean, I'm a
Okay.
Filipino. I love my country again, but in terms of of the situation at the moment of my country, it's not ready to join BRICS, and I don't even think BRICS country would allow the Philippines to join. To be very frank, why? Because
Wow.
of the so many domestic problems that we're facing. Our economy is problematic as well, and you have a foreign policy that is not balanced and independent, and it may
Hmm.
affect the relationship in BRICS. And but even then, even if we want to be part of BRICS, the thing here is like this: the United States under
Yeah.
Marcos administration will not be allowed to join BRICS. That's really the truth or the fact of the matter. I don't think the Americans would allow us, or I would encourage us. I think it would dissuade us from joining BRICS, because BRICS, as we can see, two prominent countries and BRICS is Russia and China. And I think these are so-called perceived adversaries of the United States. So that's the
Yeah.
fact of the matter, David. But if you ask me, I would want my country to be parts of BRICS, because we will benefit a lot from BRICS, really.
Wow. Well, that's very problematic. But what you said to me, the way I interpret it, is that the Philippines will not be allowed to join BRICS. It tells me maybe the Philippines doesn't have a sovereignty as we may think about it.
Well, at
Will
this
I be fair
time,
in saying
our
that?
sovereignty, yeah, but this time really, our sovereignty, our autonomy and independence is compromised. Already these are compromised because I mean, under Marcos Jr., the Americans, the United States really has influence in our foreign
Wow.
policy and even our domestic policies, even especially in defense and military. It's really true. So in
Yeah.
that sense, yes,
So what
though
is
not 100%, semi-colonial. We're
yeah,
like a semi-colony
yeah.
of the United States in a modern
So
time,
so
in the 21st century, my God.
wow. So it's like semi-autonomous country basically. So what is the role of the parliament? If there is a parliament, why is the parliament is not doing anything about?
Well, our parliament, I mean, we have a bicameral system, no? So
Uh-huh.
we have the House of Representative. The House of Representative are basically politicians, no? They would always
Hmm.
agree to what the current administration or of the what the wishes of the president and the House Speaker. And the House Speaker is the cousin of the president. So in many ways, the House is controlled, and
Wow.
well, yeah, the current well, BBM really has a control over the House in that sense. Though the Senate is not the same. I think
Yeah.
it's more independent. It has more. There are more thinking senators in there. But if you really look at the numbers, there are only 24 in the House of Representatives. They have 250 House of Representatives. So there's an imbalance in there, and even then, there are majority, I think, of the senators are allies of the current president. So in a way, even if they are in favor of something like joining BRICS, if
Yeah.
let us say the president would say no, we don't do that now, nothing happens
Wow.
to it.
Yeah.
That's
And
that's
yet,
how it is really in real
yeah.
politics. In real politics.
Yeah. And the average Filipino will end up paying the price, economically
Yes.
speaking.
The oligarchs will, I don't think they would agree to that too.
So yeah, interesting. Where does China fits in into this equation? How does China, in your opinion, since you are studying in Beijing? And by the way, there were some comments that I read on last video we did. Somebody they just I had to push back against this kind of narrative that doesn't make any sense. That you are speaking on behalf of China, you're working for China. It's nonsense. So I will say to those individuals, if you don't have anything of substance to contribute to the conversation, please do not comment. Simple as that. So, but anyway, since you are pursuing your PhD in Peking University, uh, what is your feel about how China sees these developments in Philippines,
From
politically
what I
speaking?
know, no, from what I know, China has a very strong and strict policy when you talk about non-interference. So I think when you talk
Hmm.
about domestic politics, I don't see China really trying to that interested in our domestic politics. I don't think so.
Okay.
And they have this strong strict policy of non-interference, which in many ways I think they really are success in that sense. However, when you talk about relationship between the two countries under a BBM or under a Marcos Jr. government, really our relationship with China
Yeah.
is not good. It's diplomatically, politically, and even the economic part of it is also affected. However, when you talk about people to people dynamics, of course, the Chinese and Filipinos in many ways are friends. So, but the state to state level is really not okay. But people to people, up to a certain extent, I can sense that we're Filipinos and Chinese are still good friends. And we don't really discuss politics when we talk about people to people. It's more about academics, about business,
Yeah.
it's about culture. But on the other hand, the China fits in more in the geopolitical dynamics that Philippines is being drugged because of the influence and because we are being used as a proxy and a pawn against China by the United
Yeah.
States. I think that's where China really comes in into the picture, especially when you talk about the Taiwan Strait issue and the South
Yeah.
China Sea issue, because China will never China is strong when you talk about the Taiwan issue. It will never bow down to
Yeah.
anything. And it will stand that the Taiwan is part of China, and also because of the one China policy. So that's very
Yeah.
important for them. And on our hand, and as far as we are concerned as a country, so far under the current government of Marcos Jr., he is saying that we abide and we respect the one China policy. However, one thing though, the EDCA bases, many of it or some of it are located near Taiwan or facing Taiwan. And if you look at it, these are military bases. And America is to a certain extent saying one thing but doing another thing. They're saying that they adhere to one China policy, but they're supporting and supplying weapons to
Yeah.
Taiwan, which is have these elements of separatist elements in there. On the other hand, when you talk about the South China Sea, still the United States is there pushing us, poking, and using us against China by creating this kind of pushing us to create this kind of conflict and escalation in the South China Sea. So that is where China really comes in, and that's the dynamics. But this is more about foreign policy. This is more about geopolitical situation and dynamics in the
Yeah.
region. Domestically, I don't see China interested that much in our domestic politics. But of course, given given the not so good political relationship between China and the Philippines under a Marcos Jr. administration, I think no, if I am China, I would look, maybe China is looking forward to a change of to a leader in the future that is more
Yeah.
open to China and it's more open to a friendly relation with China.
Yeah.
Maybe they are waiting for that future to happen, like
Yeah.
because we have elections after in 2028 we will have our presidential election. So
Yeah.
that would be the turning point of in terms of change of leadership when you talk about electoral
Yeah.
process. So if there's a change of leadership, there's a possibility as well that the foreign policy will change, and also there's a possibility that the approach to the South China Sea issue will change to a more diplomatic, peaceful, and a more open communication way in that sense. No, I don't know. It depends really on the presidency and who will
yeah.
be in power, because
So
everything in my country, the president is really powerful. In the same manner
wow.
that in the United States, I think to some extent is the president is powerful in that sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So will Sara Duterte run for president in your opinion?
I am not sure about that. I'm not really sure. Every time she is asked about this, she would just say like, "It's still, it's way.
Too
I mean,
early.
it's
Too early.
too early. Yeah, too
Uh,
early for me to think about it. It's in 2028. It's only now
yeah.
2024. So something like that. She said before that she will decide 1 year before the
Yeah.
election. It means like around 2027. Probably
Yeah.
she will make a decision. But if she will run or not, that one thing I am not sure
Yeah.
about. I am not
Yeah.
sure about that.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna ask you. This is for my community, guys. On the chat box, I'm gonna ask a question quickly here. Just put yes or no. Would you like me to interview the Vice President Sara Duterte? Just put yes or no in the chat box, and I'm gonna read your answers. Take a look at that later on as we move forward, because that will be an interesting and it will be fascinating to interview a sitting vice president about the conditions in the country as she sees it, because she is inside, sort of, she's at the helm of power there. It will be very interesting if that possibility ever or opportunity ever presents itself. So the last thing, Anna, I want to address with you before I let you go, and I know we are so grateful to you for carving out time for us. I know how busy you are. Going through a PhD process, it's no fun. And but that's why I always used to say, somebody with a PhD is no smarter than you, except that they can see the projects through, meaning from start to the end. And I know how the end of it is. So, but we are very, very grateful to you for blocking time for us to be here. So, my last question, I want to, not a question of sort, it's just your take into all with all these changes that's taking place right now, and not just only in Philippines. You look at also, as I mentioned earlier, what's taking place in South Korea. You look at the tensions, South China Sea, and so forth. How do ASEAN countries and ASEAN as a bloc, an economic one that is, assess the future of the Philippines within that bloc itself?
I think I think ASEAN would look at the current the Philippines under a Marcos Jr. administration in a
Mm-hmm.
way that it is, because ASEAN countries are they are not comfortable with what's going on in the Philippines, especially when you talk about the foreign policy and approach to the South China Sea. So they probably look at the Philippines as a very volatile country, that anytime soon something will happen. And if in any case a conflict in Asia Pacific will, militarily speaking, will happen, it will originate from the Philippines, really. So maybe that's some maybe these are thoughts that are playing in the minds of ASEAN counterparts, especially ASEAN leaders. However,
Mm-hmm.
ASEAN can also do something to to be a voice as well, in the region, and especially ASEAN leaders, to really emphasize that regional peace and stability and security is very important. On the other hand, that the resolution to the South China Sea dispute is not really a
Yeah.
zero-sum game. It should be more dialogue, negotiations. And in negotiations, you cannot, in a negotiation, you cannot say that you will, everything that you want you will get. No, it's usually
No,
you meet halfway, because it's a negotiation. You take some, you win some, you lose some. and
that's
and,
true.
and I think that's the approach in the South China Sea that should be, should be done, even between the Philippines and China. And also, I think ASEAN countries and ASEAN per se should really speak about pushing for the code of conduct in the South China Sea and uphold the DOC of 2012, especially when you talk about the South China Sea. It's very important. On the other hand, probably they can extend some advice to the current president of my country, especially and how to handle issues, how to handle
Yeah.
conflict
Yeah.
with another country, and even how to prioritize economic development rather than geopolitics. Because if you really look at ASEAN countries, except the Philippines, all of them, Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, even Vietnam, Laos, all of them are so focused on economic development
Okay.
and so focused in trying to have a very good relation with China because they know that they will gain much economically speaking with relation with China, downplay and resolve quietly differences with China. I think
Mm.
in that manner, probably they should try to, be a good examples and try to convince our current president that probably you should focus more on economics rather than in
Yeah.
geopolitics because nothing will happen to geopolitics. Your country will bleed further and your country will, it will cost your countries not only sovereignty but even lives if in any case a military outbreak will happen either in the Taiwan Strait or in the South
South
China
China.
Sea.
Yeah. Yeah.
Domestic politics is one thing, but economics is also very important for any country, especially for our country. We are not a wealthy country, David. I'm not
Yeah.
kidding. Ordinary Filipinos are really having a hard time trying to survive every single day. So that is something that the current administration of Marcos Jr. should acknowledge. And if he cannot really address this,
Yeah.
then probably he should rethink pursuing being president of the country for the longest time or until 4 years from now because he has still like around roughly 4 years I think or yeah around the time
Somewhere
because
around that.
2020 is a change of leadership through election. Yeah.
Well, that's why, just to go back to the point about economics, you look at, for example, now, I just read something yesterday about Cambodia and China embarking on
Mm,
some economic ventures.
yes.
China and Thailand, China and
Mm.
Indonesia, China and Malaysia,
China and Vietnam, the new
Vietnam. And
subway are like
yeah,
railway speed train. They have this
yes.
already. We don't have speed train. We don't have subway. Our metro system is really problematic too. Sometimes it's okay, sometimes it's not. Really, I'm not
Oh,
kidding.
yeah.
Oh yes,
Well, the government in Philippines needs to really focus on the people. Economy, like you said, Anna, economy is your engine. It's not
yes.
geopolitics. Economy is your engine. And I hope if Marcos Jr. listening to this video, he will at least hit some advice. But uh, I'm joking here. So we know Marcos Jr. is not gonna watch this one here. But it will do him good. It will do him good to listen to an outsider who doesn't have any stakes into. I'm not. For you as a Filipina, you are saying what you're saying for the sake of your country. For me as an outsider, I'm just watching from outside in. No more, no less. So, well, Anna,
That's
I give you the last word before we let you go. Any word of wisdom from you to share with the
um,
community and anything you want to say.
Thank you so much, David, again for the second time opportunity for me to be able to share my perspective on different issues regionally, even about the world and especially
Mhm.
about my country right now. I just hope really that I will see my country in a matter of time rising up from all of these problems and this. So it's some kind of we're again back in the darkest time of our history, really, from the time of the martial law, and now it's even worse, to be very frank with you. So I really hope that Filipinos also would open their eyes, and I really hope that that sense of active citizenship and responsible citizenship will be imbibed and will be embraced by Filipinos, because only through that they can exercise what you call the sovereign power of the people in a democracy. If we claim to be a democracy, then people should take that power to be responsible citizen, to be active citizen, and be engaged in the affairs of the state and be engaged in the affairs of the political affairs of the country and be a voice. Because sometimes that's the problem with Filipinos. They don't voice out. Even if they're suffering already, they just take it and suddenly they will explode. No, it's not. It has to be out. You have to raise your voice and say your piece so that the government will hear it. Sometimes it takes so many voices before the government hears something. So I really hope that my fellow Filipino will take and embrace that responsibility that you are not just a bystander. We are all needed by our country if we want our country to be better, and we have a role to play in all of these things that's going on in the country. And I really hope that we have this vision for a better Philippines, a more progressive, economically progressive Philippines, and a better Philippines. And I hope that we will not create enemies out of any country, but friends, because we cannot live in isolation. There's no such thing.
That's
So we
true.
have to have good relation with all countries possible, especially major countries like Russia and China, and even other countries, major countries in the Asia Pacific region. That's my wish, and that's my hope, and I hope our my fellow Filipinos would, would heed this call of, being active in the affairs of the country. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
oh, my pleasure. There are a lot of Filipino people join us here, literally on the chat. I look at like this. Marcos is so numb that he doesn't know. He doesn't even know what is going on in the country. Legacy is not in the table. Take and take. It's their only concern. So, yeah, there are some. I saw this one here. Rona Jimenez. Marcos is a very weak leader. So that you got a lot. I just want to say thank you to Kevin Baptist for becoming a channel member. Thank you for being here. And Noel, I want to say thank you for your super sticker. Truly, truly appreciate you. I always have to say thank you to the super stickers, Anna, and the members and so forth. So, well, on behalf of the entire community, I want to say thank you again for carving out time for us. And I look forward to seeing you next time. You're no stranger now to the channel here. You have a platform here, and we love to learn from you, and we appreciate you for sharing your wisdom and knowledge with us also. Thank you again, Anna.
Thank you. Thank you so
My
much, David.
pleasure.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. God bless, and take care, everyone. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So please wait for me till I say bye the community, Anna. Okay. Guys, hope you enjoyed this conversation here with Anna. She's always very insightful to learn from, and we'll have her again on the channel here. So I just want to remind you, remember to join me at 12:15 for the live stream that I'm going to be talking about the threat that President elect Trump has now threatened BRICS countries with tariffs and so forth. So I'm going to be detailing with you the economic and the geopolitical impact of those. So I look forward to seeing you in that. As always, remember, geopolitics impacts your daily life in more ways than one. Till next time, guys. Bye-bye.